Good morning to everyone and welcome to the webinar organized by PBC on improving value addition and export potential of fruits and vegetables. I'm Saud Bangish, PBC's resident director based in Islamabad. This is one of a series of webinars being organized on the topic by PBC. The previous one we organized was back in July 2020 in collaboration with the Sustainable Development Policy Institute, or better known as SDPI. I welcome all our panelists and participants from the Government of Punjab, the private sector companies, associations, and all the others who are here with us today. Thank you for coming. I will now give an introduction to the Pakistan Business Council, followed by the agenda of this webinar. PBC is a business advocacy institution with 84 of Pakistan's reputable business groups and conglomerates as its members. PBC member companies contribute 11% to Pakistan's GDP, 25% of receipts to the national exchequer, and 40% of the exports of Pakistan. PBC has a Make in Pakistan trust to promote sectors with the potential for growth in the domestic and export markets. Value addition, coming to the topic, value addition in horticulture is an unmistakable opportunity for which PBC will be presenting its findings during this webinar and hearing perspectives of our panelists. We have 10 minutes allocated for PBC's presentation, 30 minutes allocated to 6 speakers, followed by a Q&A of about 25 minutes. I would request speakers to please abide by the allocated time. The purpose of remarks by panelists will be to elicit perspectives from sector specialists and policy perspectives from the Government of Punjab. If there are any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat box or raise your hand during the Q&A time. I thank you again for being here with us today, and I would like to pass on the floor to my colleague, Mr. Jawad Rahman, to make the presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Jawad.
Thank you so much, Sal. I'll be starting my presentation. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. I'll be speaking on the horticulture sector and our research on this topic and how Pakistan can boost its exports from the sector. A quick glance on what PBC membership looks like. We have a large number of members, a lot of them household names that you might recognize. I'll skip on to the main part of the presentation. So horticulture in Pakistan, while we want it to be export-led, is not how it is. We are a net importer. Essentially, we're importing $200 million worth of commodities in Pakistan, and this doesn't include products, which are we also net importer of products as well. In order to increase our exports, we need to focus on producing commodities that there's international demand for. For instance, oranges or citrus, for instance, has an international trade of $10 billion, and citrus juices has a trade of around $6 billion, as opposed to mangoes, which is estimatedly around $2 billion of international trade and $500 million of its value-added commodities in terms of purees and mango juice. So the focus should be on producing commodities that have international market as opposed to more niche products, for instance. Pakistan's share in global market is quite low. For instance, while citrus is our largest export, around 1/4 of our total exports, its market share is around 1.5%, and it's more concentrated towards regional markets like Afghanistan, for instance. So it doesn't reach the larger global audience, and we almost have no global footprint of value-added products from these commodities, such as orange juice and French fries. We'll now talk about what the global marketplace looks like and what other countries have done and how Pakistan can sort of replicate those things as well. The global market for horticulture has grown significantly over the last 2 decades by around 4 times, largely in fruits more than vegetables, as the figure shows. Um, the most traded fruit or the fruit in most demand is bananas, followed by citrus, uh, followed by grapes and apples. What is of Pakistan's interest would be bananas and citrus. In vegetables, it's tomatoes, capsicum, onions, and potatoes. These are the commodities. In terms of products, grapes and grape juices, derivatives of grape juice in terms of alcoholic beverages are by far the largest traded product, around tune of $38 billion, something that Pakistan might not be able to do because of religious dictums. But on the other hand, potatoes, fries, and chips, that's a global market of $11 billion, something that Pakistan can look into value-added processing, and then orange juices, and then tomatoes in terms of ketchup and paste. So these three are something that should be of Pakistan, naturally and of interest to Pakistan, something that it already produces and already has a domestic market for. Had Pakistan kept pace, peer economies such as Vietnam, Egypt, and Peru, which have a very similar starting point, Pakistan would have been exporting around 2.2 billion of commodities. That would be an add-on to this, keeping up pace with countries with a similar starting point. So Egypt would be a good example to look at what Egypt did and why it has been effective. So in 1990s, Egypt underwent an IMF program quite similar to Pakistan, and it sort of deregulated its market, especially in terms of price controls and removing government footprint and government-controlled entities. So what happened because of this was it had a very large infrastructure of farmer collectives, which helped it to provide credit to a lot of farmers, and less government intervention allowed the private sector to flourish. One of the major outcomes of this is Egypt has now overtaken Spain and become the biggest exporter of oranges in the world. And it's now looking aggressively to expand its market. And it's reaching out towards China, which it feels is a very big market and something that Pakistan should look to emulate. What should be the key commodities that Pakistan should look into? In terms of fruits, it's citrus or oranges. Again, as I mentioned, Pakistan only exports to nearby markets, and its exports have kind of it doesn't export to any of the larger importers such as countries in the EU, China, or the US. Similarly, potatoes, Pakistan has only regional exports and doesn't export to high value-added markets in the EU and the US, and those are the largest importers as well. There are a lot of reasons for it, especially due to quarantine controls and SPS requirements. That is something that Pakistan should work towards. So what are the challenges in increasing Pakistan's productivity? The yields are very low, and it's around 1/4 of what global best would be, or the top economies would be producing. The farm systems are quite outmoded, and there's a loss of around 30 to 40% from farm to the market. There are no contract enforcement. There's almost very limited. There's no legal tools to work with. Infrastructure is quite weak. As we all know, there's very limited cold chain from transportation from farm to the port or to the markets. And the industry or the value-added processing does not get the inputs that are needed. So, and I'll talk a little bit about it for further slides. Without contract farming, it'd be difficult to produce high quality products because the inputs are not tailored to the need of the industry. It will benefit both farmers and the contracting agencies or the firms that manufacture it. Farmers get better inputs, better seeds, and a buyback option. So they have been a short market. So that works quite well for them. The contractors or pack houses or the corporations get a smooth supply, and they also get a quality assurance, that something that they need for good production. High density plantation is a good solution, but it's quite expensive to do in the short run. But the output is quite high. At least the output would be around 300% more. Per hectare production would be around 7 to 8 times. So again, the biggest challenge is having a high capital cost, because the existing orchards would have to be culled off, and that means 3 to 4 years of waiting period. So again, that's the bigger challenge in having high density plantations. Pakistan also needs the right variety of seeds and orchards. For instance, without which you cannot have the right value-added produce. For instance, you cannot produce the right sort of ketchup because you do not have the right sort of tomatoes, which do not have the right pigments, the right color, the right pH value, and the right brix content. Similarly, while we have the right potatoes in Pakistan for chips, we don't have the right potatoes to make fries. Similarly, we do not have oranges that come in the summer season. So we need to sort of diversify and have more variety and the right variety for industrial production. Removal of price control is quite important, since it limits private sector's involvement, and it sort of reduces the ability of domestic farmers to put in higher capital or higher investments into their farm production. Intellectual rights and seed breeders and seed protection is quite important, because without the right seeds, we cannot have higher yielding varieties introduced in Pakistan, because there's a lot of local backcrossing of seeds in Pakistan. Some firms do not find it viable to bring in new technological seeds in Pakistan. For that, we need this Plants Breeder Act to be enforced in Pakistan, which will result in better quality seeds being used in Pakistan and increasing our yields from our crops. That will be the end of my presentation. Thank you so much. I think if there will be any questions, we'll be taking them at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sir.
Thank you, Jawad. Thank you. Perfect timing. And thanks for all the insightful perspectives emanating from PBC's research on the topic. With that, I would like to pass on the floor to Mr. Ahmad Salman, who's the General Manager of Supply Chain from National Foods, who will be speaking to us on tomato and its value chain, and in particular also shedding light on tomato paste as an input to the industry. Over to you, Ahmad Saab. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Ahmad Salman. As National Food, as you all know, is a FMCG foods company, and one of our key products is tomato ketchup. We are the largest producer and with the highest market share in tomato ketchup in Pakistan. As of now, we have been using Chinese imported tomato paste to produce tomato ketchup. Roughly around 4,000 to 5,000 tons of tomato paste is imported. Having said that, Pakistan has been producing tomatoes for the last couple of years, like around 300. If I look at the area that FAO declares in Sindh in Pakistan is around 375,000 acres, mostly in Sindh and Punjab area, partially in Balochistan as well. Now the struggle that we have, the challenge in terms of using the local tomato into production for tomato paste, the varieties and the seeds that are used in Pakistan are not fit for that. So this year we purchased roughly 300 tons of local tomato paste and try to come up with our final tomato ketchup product. And the biggest challenge was coming out in our consumer panel analysis of difference in color, sourness. So when we go into sensorial testing, because we are more of a consumer goods company, we eventually try to satisfy what consumer wants. So typically our consumer doesn't want that much sourness into our product. So the flavor changes, the mouthfeel becomes different. So there are certain varieties that we need. So there's a lot of research work that we did earlier also to figure it out, that one is the economic side and the other is the food or the catch-up requirement from the consumer perspective. So our market requires more sweeter variety of tomato paste rather than the current one, which is more sour. Uh, and all the research, the consumer panel clearly states and that we need to switch back to the Chinese one. Having said that, there is more merit to use certain seeds, because if I look at the key areas of Sindh where we are having very highest yield in Pakistan, like Thatta, Badin, Ladkana, we normally get roughly around 20 tons per acre. While the varieties that we are buying of tomato paste from China are yielding 40 to 42 tons per acre. Now you can well imagine that the economics change. So the price point that a tomato paste producer will need in Pakistan will be to have at least 10 rupees per kilogram of tomatoes. So now that creates another challenge, that between farm and industry there has to be a link. So one is the seeds, which will get us the right variety to produce tomato paste. The second leg will be then to have the right pricing between the industry and the farm. Because unless we fix these two elements, we can't have tomato paste usage in industry. And the market shown here in the earlier slides, this is the biggest, third or biggest, I think, second or third biggest market in the world in terms of requirement. So we have ample opportunity first to convert the imported into local. So it will not require a lot in terms of land. So we did a calculation. So in roughly 2,000 acres, we can convert the whole import to local. So it just requires us to use the right seeds and around 2,000 acres of land.
Ahmed Saab, thank you so much for the comments. Excellent perspectives. Obviously, getting to understand the importance of having the right variety introduced of tomato will do wonders for the industry in terms of input for tomato ketchup. With that, I would like to pass on the floor to Mr. Zahid Saleem, Head of Agro at PepsiCo, and who will be speaking specifically on potato processing. Over to you, Zahid Saab.
Thank you very much, Ji, and Assalamu alaikum. So PepsiCo is one of the leading food and beverage company in the world, with products sold in more than 200 countries and territories. So we have 22 brands here. Lay's is one of the leading brands, which is highest market share of around more than 88% in the country. So we are using potatoes for manufacturing of potato chips here. So as per the latest agriculture statistics of Pakistan, potato is the fourth most important crop in the country, with 4 million tons of potato production, which is grown over an approximate area of 425,000 acres. So despite its important role, the average potato yield in Pakistan is up to 10 tons per acre, whereas in countries with modernized agriculture, the average yield is as high as 25 tons, which is 2.5 times higher than Pakistan. So in addition to low yields due to poor financial condition, growers are forced to sell their produce at prevailing prices to middlemen at the time of harvest, compromising their profitability and hence creating a vicious cycle. The industry-specific potato portion is only 8% of total potato production, which hardly meets a local industry potato requirement. Due to its low share, industry has to import variety-specific potato if demand increases. A huge opportunity exists to increase its proportion through addition of industry-specific variety seed, which will not only meet local industry requirement, but can also result in exporting raw as well as value-added products, including chips, fries, frozen vegetable mix, potato starch, etc., and generating a foreign exchange for the country. Thus, there exists an opportunity to significantly increase potato production yields and farmer profitability in Pakistan. This can be achieved through converting traditional farming practices to modern agriculture techniques and practices, introducing efficient seed varieties, as some of the friends talked about, and educating our growers towards precision agriculture and mechanized farm operations. Through eliminating role of middlemen and providing direct access to the market, growers' profitability can be significantly improved. Additionally, the prudent use of natural resources with special focus on water and soil conservation will lead towards sustainable agriculture. According to an estimate, 1 ton increase in per acre yield can translate into 0.4 million tons of additional potato production in Pakistan, worth of 125 million US dollar export opportunity for fresh potato only. So given relatively low cost of production in Pakistan, there is tremendous potential for export to regional markets of Central Asia, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Middle East, and Russia for raw potatoes. And converting potato into finished good through value addition can further increase foreign exchange earning and generate additional employment opportunities within the country. A huge opportunity exists for public-private partnership, where infrastructure can be developed for establishing large-scale cold store chains, seed production facilities for public and industry-specific seed requirement, and regulating export, keeping in view the local demands. PepsiCo Pakistan, through its contract farming operation, is sponsoring PepsiCo Sustainable Farming Program, which is SFP in the country. This program is facilitating local growers to modernize their farming operations, converting them from conventional to precision agriculture, and improving growers' capabilities and produce standards, resulting in increased farm profitability. So this program includes a demonstration of advanced machinery, including precision planter, automatic harvesters, graders, and boom sprayers for improved crop yield and quality. Then creating awareness on prudent use of resources, especially water, through extending incentives on use of high efficiency irrigation system by paying premium prices for the produce out of high efficiency irrigation system acreage. Then PepsiCo is also working on social uplifting of farm workers and improving their working standards through ensuring provision of basic facilities, which includes access to clean water, washroom, wages, Espala, use of PPEs, farm waste management, and elimination of child labor, etc. Through PepsiCo SFP initiative, our contracted growers has got themselves certified through international third party and practically realized benefits of increased profitability and productivity at their farms. Following are some of the points which could be considered while reviewing the policy matters relating development of value-added horticulture in the province. First one is public-private partnership. So establishing large-scale cold storage facilities, eliminating the role of middleman and storage hoarding, which would help in regulating domestic and industrial potato requirement. Then local seed production facility to provide low cost and high quality seed locally to the growers. Grower capability development through training facilitation to improve yield and quality of the produce. Then number 2 is seed registration and variety protection. So it's commendable that Government of Pakistan approved PBR, which is Plant Breeder Right Act. However, companies like PepsiCo is still reluctant to bring in progressive varieties in Pakistan till law for the germplasm protection is fully implemented and such varieties are fully protected. And simplification of variety registration process will further help in increasing access to the farmers to get promising seed varieties in Pakistan. Currently, it is very long. Then industry-specific varieties can be considered in a special category and approved to be sourced from various countries, including Egypt, Turkey, Brazil, US, and Australia. Currently, we are only allowed to import from Europe and mainly from Holland. Then on number 3, potato export policy review. So Pakistan could serve as a potato export hub for table as well as industry-specific potato. However, it is suggested to allow export of table potato if produced in surplus only. Potato-based industry to be facilitated for exporting of value-added finished good only by converting industry-specific potato varieties into finished good. For example, potato chips, fries, frozen vegetables, potato starch, etc. Then on number 4 is promoting precision agriculture through farm mechanization. The cost incurred for mechanization of farm is high for Pakistani growers. Therefore, it is suggested to introduce latest machinery for advanced markets after reviewing and relaxing or waiving off import duties or taxes, uh, and extending subsidies for promoting use of advanced machinery in potato farming operations. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zahid Saab. Thank you for the time and your excellent intervention. I think what we'll talk about the key takeaways, but I think the point you've raised about seeds, I think there's also a question which we'll address in the question answer session about bringing in the right varieties of seed to upgrade our products in potato would be very critical. So thank you for your intervention. Thank you. With that, I would like to pass along the mic to Dr. Erfa Iqbal, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Punjab Board of Investment and Trade. Madam, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I was a little unprepared, like for a few minutes, because I thought there were other people, other speakers before me. But anyways, I'm all set. So once again, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to participate in this forum. And I always think it is an absolutely important thing to communicate, to connect the government and organizations and platforms like yours, because connecting with business community is so important. This is where the actual action lies. So this is a very important forum. And coming to my presentation, I'll quickly go through the situational analysis, like where we stand right now vis-a-vis Punjab. And then I will take a minute to share my views on the recommendations. हाँ जी शेयर हो रही है स्क्रीन करें अच्छा होस्ट ने करनी है उनसे करवाइए I'll be talking about as I said a snapshot of Punjab, where Punjab fits into the greater context of Pakistan, its contribution in GDP, in its percentage contribution in the top 10 vegetables, top 10 fruits, the variety of fruits and vegetables which contribute more towards the import and overall export of the country. So these are the things that I would share with you. And then coming down to where the potential lies and where the action is required. What are the gaps and how can we recommend or proceed to plug in those gaps? हाँ जी क्या इशू है मैं सारी प्रेजेंटेशन ऐसे ही बोल दूंगी तो प्रेजेंटेशन में क्या रहेगा can we request the host to please display the presentation so that everyone is on board?
Ji, madam, I'll just give you a co-host, right? So you can share the screen.
चलिए कर दीजिए
from your laptop.
Otherwise, क्योंकि टाइम बहुत कम है, मेरे 2 मिनट ऑलरेडी हो चुके हैं, मैं अब जुबानी बोल दूं तो शायद ज्यादा बेहतर होगा.
Please go ahead and share your screen.
शेयर करें जी स्क्रीन. तो ये स्नैपशॉट के बाद मैं जो फौरन चीजें आपसे डिस्कस करना चाहूंगी. ओके, I'll very quickly go through it. Farm to fork, as I have wasted like a couple of minutes, 5 में से. ये वहाँ पे next चलें. Okay, this is the value chain just to display next.
Achha, madam, sorry to intervene, and we can't see the screen yet. So someone has.
चलें जी, आप रहने दे, टाइम कम है, मैं वैसे ही बोल देती हूँ. आप वीडियो ऑन कीजिए, स्क्रीन नहीं शेयर हो रही तो रहने दे. I'll just go through it. स्क्रीन नहीं अभी तक शेयर हुई. ये पहले से करनी चाहिए थी ना स्क्रीन, आपको इनसे टाइप करना चाहिए था. बट एनीवेज फॉरगेट इट नाउ. ओके, सो वैल्यू चेन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर पे मैं ज्यादा बात नहीं करूंगी, आप लोग मुझसे बहुत ज्यादा बेहतर जानते हैं. पाकिस्तान एग्रीकल्चर आउटलुक में मैं एक अहम चीज ये देख रही थी दैट द ग्राफ, द एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर शेयर इन जीडीपी हैज डिक्रीज्ड ओवर टाइम. From 2014 till 2018-19, the graph has gone down, although that in last year, 1920, we have picked up the pace a little bit. Ho rahi hai share? Okay. Isme bhi, I was just, I mean, we just need to focus on the point that what are the products where there was an increase and the projects where there was a decrease. So sugar and cotton are decreased, and the decrease in cotton actually, it really raises the eyebrows, and it brings the alarm bell. आप लोग, can you see the screen now?
Ji, madam, we can see it.
Okay,
Thank you.
next. So this is what I just said about the agriculture outlook, that sugarcane and cotton posted negative growth, and in rest of the areas we actually have a positive growth, which is obviously encouraging. Overall, there is an increase from if we compare the past 2 years, but there is a decrease, consistent decrease since past many years. Next. Quick. These are the fruit. Okay, Kharif and Rabi crop will not go into the detail. Next, Punjab's economic backbone of Pakistan. So this is where Punjab lies vis-a-vis the total population, 52% of Pakistan, 60% of labor force, and 25% of land area. Next. 55% of Pakistan's GDP is the share from Punjab, and in Punjab, 18% is the agriculture sector contribution. Next. Again, a snapshot of Punjab. Next. Fruit basket of Punjab, which is very important because out of 30 different fruits in Pakistan, top fruits, 16 are from Punjab. Next. These are the 10 fruits from Pakistan, contributing 97% of the to the export basket. So these are the areas that we are identifying that we need to focus on, these existing, as well as we should develop the other fruits. Next. The top fruit imports, contributing 93% of the imports of Pakistan. Next. Vegetable exports, again, the important ones. Next. The important imports of Pakistan. Next. Proposition. So we need to move from the current low value addition to the high value addition in next 10 years. This is where the focus should be. Next. This is the productivity opportunity, the opportunity which we are losing. So this is a comparison of world's best yield with Pakistan's best yield. Actually, I think Punjab is wrongly written. It is Punjab. Okay, sorry, this is Punjab. So this is where we have a gap. This is where we have the potential, and we can actually increase our yield according to the international standards. Next. These are the main issues: the insufficient raw material supply, inadequate safety standards, erratic inputs, poor farming skills, poor financial support, poor technical choices, lack of innovation. Next. And now I come to the recommendation, which is always my most favorite topic. Most of these recommendations are the same as Mr. Jawad mentioned in the PBC report in the beginning of this session. However, I would just add a few things. National Horticulture Development Framework, which prioritizes productivity, crop zoning, exports, contract farming agreements. Already Mr. Jawad talked about it. Then alignment of quality and health safety standards, intellectual property rights, model processing facilities, cold chain infrastructure, technical support, export incentives, international market leaders, attracting investments by them, and discontinuing price control of horticulture, already discussed, credit line for processing units. So most of the points are already discussed. I would like to actually add a few more points. आप बेशक इसमें कर दें, मेरा वीडियो पे ले आएं. I feel more connected when I'm on video. So I think that there should be time-bound action plans made by respective departments and all the provinces. This is absolutely important in my opinion. And then the planning, the overall holistic planning should be an integrated collaborative planning. And this, when I say a holistic plan, I mean water resources, okay. So water management, irrigation on modern lines, research on hybrid seeds, research on new varieties. These are all the areas which needs to be planned in a holistic, collaborative, integrated manner to proceed forward. And then we should also focus on domestic commerce so we can actually strengthen each other's we can strengthen each other and then face the international market. A very important thing just mentioned by my earlier speaker, by an earlier speaker, was PPP. I personally think that the procedures for public partner private partnership need to be simplified and more incentives should be given. Generally speaking, I see a lot of red tapeism in that. Then we need to focus on e-commerce, service sector, along with the value addition, because packaging, transportation, marketing are all very important and they need to augment our value addition process. We need to focus on industrialization of agriculture if we really need value addition. And then we focus on, once we are done with our holistic planning, domestic commerce, collaboration among the provinces, service sector development, then we address the parallel, simultaneously address the export market. And in export markets, we should have our outreach policy, we outreach the missions, we outreach the business forums in our target companies. So this is it. I don't want to go on and on as I have already taken too much of time, but these are some recommendations which I really wanted to share with everyone. And thank you very much once again for bearing with me and for giving me actually this extra time to share my views. Thanks once again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erfa Saiba, for the time. Indeed, the purpose for PBC to organize this webinar is to start a conversation with the Punjab government and on what can be done at the provincial level to get the ball rolling on the value addition of fruits and vegetables. So thank you for your time and your insightful intervention. With that, I'd like to pass along the mic to Mr. Usman Qayyum, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Rafhan Maize Products Company Limited. We're indeed honored to have you, sir. We'd love to hear your perspectives on contract farming, since Rafhan Maize stands out as a company which has done a remarkable job in getting the contracts to farmers and getting output improved. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Saud, and thank you very much everybody for giving this opportunity. First of all, just briefly about Rafhan Maize Product Company Limited. We are basically the processor of corn or maize in Pakistan, and probably the largest industry buyer of corn in Pakistan at the moment. We buy something like 600,000 tons of corn every year and process it, and then convert it into starches and sweeteners, which are being used by different industries. Almost every industry in Pakistan, may it be the food sector, industrial sector, or the pharmaceutical sector, which are there. So we actually connect with a very, very large base of industries in Pakistan. And on the other hand, we have got a very deep connection with the agriculture. That's where our roots are actually. Though we are not directly linked with anywhere fruits and vegetable, but I would like to share some of the experience around broader agriculture insights that we have. And because Rafhan Maize has been the company who was the pioneer of this contract farming or contract agriculture in Pakistan, and they started it off sometime in late 70s and early 80s. So that was the time when Rafhan Maize started this contract farming approach with the farmer. And there was a time when maize used to be nowhere in terms of the crop in Pakistan, and it all about the other crops which were there. And today maize stands at around probably fifth or sixth largest crop, with something like 5 to 6 million tons being cropped in Pakistan right now. So if I go back to the history, and when Rafhan started off this contract manufacturing, the things were very challenging from one angle, because it was very difficult to convince the farmer to move from one crop to the other crop. But on the other hand, it was relatively simpler also, because when you start it off, you get more such farmers who are engaged with you, and you probably being the single largest or the single buyer in the market, you get the opportunity to grab all the crop that is there in the market. Now, over the years, as the things has evolved and some of the other industries has also come into the play, some of the other crops has also started going into the contract manufacturing. And I must appreciate our friends from Pepsi over here. They have done a tremendous job in taking this whole thing forward in this contract farming side. But I'm sure the similar challenges being faced by them also, similar challenges being faced by us also, when we see the current shape of the contract farming. Because the biggest challenge that come into play is that the commitment from the agriculture farming community side. Our regulations are not strong enough that you can get the firm commitment from the farmers that whatever support you are providing to them, end of the day, you are going to get the crop also from them. So that's where the biggest challenge comes into play. So the turnaround of the crop in terms of how much percentage of that crop that you get in terms of the crop that you harvest is becoming more and more challenging, especially with the crop which is more commoditized. For example, I'm sure potato is the same case, maize is the same case. Whenever the farmer get an opportunity to translate into a different kind of selling channel, they use that opportunity, and end of the day, despite all the efforts, you are unable to get that crop into the industry. So that one challenge that is being faced. Apart from that, there are few things which I would like to mention, and I'm surprised, South over here. We have got a lot of industry experts over here, done a tremendous job. We don't have anybody from the farming community over here. Now, unless this connect between the farmer and the industry is there, it is very difficult to really move forward. If I talk about, you see, even today, there are two big, you see, there are silos. There's a farming community and there's an industry. I haven't seen the farming community converting towards the entrepreneurship and moving towards the industrial output. Now, the farmers are taking their own way, they produce the crop and then they expect the best benefit out of it. Industry is working on their own products. They want the cheapest of the raw material, and end of the day want to produce from that cheap raw material. So this disconnect, unless this disconnect is going to be bridged, it is very difficult to actually move forward, whether it is any other any agriculture commodity or it's horticulture or vegetable or fruits. That is one angle. Couple of things, because I don't want to repeat all those things which a lot of learned panelists has already explained and mentioned. But one or two things I would definitely mention over here, because we have the opportunity, some of the government representatives are also over here. One of the big challenge I think agriculture is facing right now is the confusion between the federal and the provincial governments. You see, their kind of boundaries, how the federal government and the provincial government they are going to play. We have got a food security ministry there in federal government. We have got certain regulators sitting in the provincial level, and a lot of times that confusions end of the day lead to some of the initiatives which the industry or the farming community want to take. They are left high and dry that which route has to be followed. And actually, honestly speaking, there have been a number of initiatives we are working on, and we are struggling in the same manner right now. The third thing I would talk about is on the regulator side, in terms of some of the panelists has talked about the seed part also. Now, this is probably the most important thing. Unless you have got the right input, it is very difficult to get the right output also. And one of the big challenge, I tell you, right now, in order to have the good quality seed is one, the intellectual property kind of things, regulations in Pakistan, because number of seed companies, when they want to enter into Pakistan, they have fear that their patents would be stolen and or those patents would not be protected. That's one of the big challenge. The second part is even our processes and systems which are there, the regulators' processes and systems, they are not at all friendly in terms of introducing or facilitating those seed companies or the seed producers to come and play over here. We had been facing a lot of challenges over here also in introducing certain seeds, and it's an awful process. You have to take 2, 3, 4 years time in order to register a seed, and by that time the whole opportunity is gone, I tell you. So these are some of the challenges which are there, which are more related to the regulators' part. You see, regulators' responsibility is to ensure a very strong compliance, but at the same time, their responsibility is to facilitate and simplify the processes for the people who want to engage into those fields as well. And we see a lot of challenges in terms of introduction, no facilitation in terms of introducing something, and a very weak role of compliance side. So it is absolutely reverse on both the sides. So these are some of the challenges which are definitely there, which end of the day for anybody moving towards agriculture or contract farming or farming stuff, it becomes very difficult to operate in this kind of an environment right now. But anyway, yes, we have already talked about the opportunities. It's definitely there. There are great opportunities, but the things has to be seen how to really materialize those opportunities. And for that, I think everybody has to work together in that respect. So thank you very much for this time.
Thank you so much, Usman Saab. It's very, very helpful and valuable to hear your comments. I think I would want to, before I invite Mr. Kashif Jamshed, who's the project director for establishment of Model Farms project in the Department of Agriculture of the Government of Punjab. I just want to mention Kashif Saab just joined us. He's having some technical difficulties. I'm glad he's here. But Kashif Saab, one of the few common threads that are coming out of the previous discussions is one, the IP, the intellectual property rights of ensuring for seeds, rather, specifically, and also the enforcement of contracts with farmers. Usman Saab raised a very good point about how to bridge the communication gap between farmers and industry. I think that's something we're going to take along with us. But over to you, Kashif Saab. I would love to hear your views. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saab. There are different angles to look into a certain issue. We at the Punjab government are also.
So we cannot hear you, Kashif Saab.
Kashif Saab, the voice quality isn't ideal. Can you see if it can be improved?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you loud and clear. Okay,
thank you. So there are different aspects of looking into a problem. We are also in the provincial government suffering due to some of the problems which are not in our mandate, basically. For example, seed is one issue that is related to the federal government. But I agree with you that this is a big pinching issue in the value chain. So now let's look into the whole value chain sector on a holistic manner and with respect to export, opportunities available. When we look into the statistics, our exports are stuck somewhere around 600, 700 million US dollars. And primarily they are, accumulated of three major commodities, which is citrus, potato, and mango, which contributes almost 60% of your total export volumes. And Punjab contributes somewhere around 99% of citrus, 97% of potatoes and 70% of mangoes which are exported. Now, now the major chunk which is left alone is vegetables, which also comes from Punjab. Now look at the issues sector by sector. When you are into fruits and vegetables, you need to identify every value chain in isolation. We have 450,000 acres, almost 500 acres of land, which is citrus. We have orchards which are 8 to 10 to 15 years old. Seed is a big problem for the expansion, for the new plantation. But what about the 500 acres of citrus land which is already there? Similarly, mango. We have a plantation at almost 400, 500 acres, which is like 15, 20, 30 years old. What to do about those plantations? You just can't, wipe them off from the root and start new. So seed is one aspect to look into it. But another aspect to look into it is the finding new markets. Create a new market for our product. Unless we do that, we cannot align our production lines accordingly. Another problem raised was contract farming. If you look into the citrus value chain, you will find a lot of contract farming going on there. It is informal contract farming. A lot of citrus exporters have already aligned farmers with them. They carry them along throughout the production cycle. They meet their financial needs. They help them out with all the production technologies and all the new advancements in production. But yet, those orchards are there. You can only, what you can do is you can increase the quality of the produce. You can increase the productivity of the orchards. But you cannot do much. Now you cannot bring sweet mandarins out of the quinoa orchards. We have quinoa, we have to sell quinoa. All we can do is we can improve the quality. So the problem has to be taken up individually for each value chain. But rest assured, Punjab government is deploying all their resources to facilitate these value chains. The project I'm working upon, establishment of model farms, we are working in a value chain approach. We are building the capacity of the farmers. We are linking those farmers with the processing industry. We are providing them subsidized machineries. On the other hand, we are providing subsidized machinery to the value addition sector. So it has to be taken up as a holistic approach. But the problem is, when we look into the export portfolio, Punjab alone cannot meet the requirements of the international market. It has to be done collaboratively with the other provinces of Pakistan. Because when you now again into individual value chains, when you export mangoes, it's Sindh first who starts exporting from middle of May till end of June when the Punjab mangoes come in. If Sindh is not working on the mango value chain, we cannot capture the international market. Similarly, when we talk about vegetables, there are other provinces, other players also involved. So what needs to be done is to create an environment in the federal government to help the provinces boost exports. And we should have one agribusiness policy which should be enforced. One, this seed issue has to be taken up on priority, which leads to intellectual property rights and other associated issues. Again, it's a federal government issue. Then the opening up of new markets, the technical barriers to trade, negotiating with countries for opening new market is again the mandate of Department of Plant Protection, which is a federal government institution. So all these areas need to be looked into. What the provinces and what the investors should look into is the value addition sector. The value added market is comparatively less stringent as compared to export market of fresh fruits and vegetables. Now there is big room for juices, for pulp, for puree, for concentrates. There has been a very little work done in Pakistan in these sectors. So that is one area we should look into, and we should, attract investment in it. Secondly, we should also go into contract farming, keeping in line with the international market standards. For example, it's a brilliant, excellent example given in the case study done by Pakistan Business Council, in which it has been reflected that Nigeria has built up greenhouses and they are growing vegetables specifically for Chinese market. Now, again, if we have time, it's a very simple methodology. China does not allow vegetables or fresh fruits and vegetables from Pakistan, which has sanitary and phytosanitary issues. So what they have done is they have acquired land in Nigeria, built greenhouses, met the SPS requirement, and they must have made some intra-governmental arrangement to transfer that produce back in China. If such strategy is adopted in Pakistan, we can totally harness the fruit of the CPAC initiative. Just look at the globe where Nigeria is and how close we are to China. If we can make some arrangement with Chinese, we can attract Chinese investment into Pakistan where they can grow for their needs at their standards, and they can move that consignment back to China. This would not only open.
Ashif Saab, if I may intervene, I think your points are very well taken. And if you would allow, for the benefit of the time, since we've we're a bit squeezed for time now, we've overshot our schedule. Can I request you to close your remarks so that we can move to the next speaker also? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it has to be a holistic approach. The provincial governments, along with the private sector should sit with the federal government and design a strategy where it's a win-win situation for all the provinces and for the private sector investment. And only then we can design an investment opportunities and investment strategy also. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. That was very helpful. I'm very grateful to you. Now, moving on to the last speaker, we have Ms. Nadia Faruqi, who's the Chief of WTO in the Industries, Commerce, Investment and Skills Development Department of the Government of Punjab. Ms. Nadia Faruqi, over to you for your comments, please. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum all. This is Nadia Faruqi from Industries Department. Can you hear me?
Ji, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of Sector Industries, I thank you for giving this opportunity. Very briefly and shortly, I want to comment that Industries Department is quite committed and well aware of the importance of value addition in general, and particularly in horticulture. What we are doing at the moment for value addition, I can give an overview. There are many industrial estates that Industry Department is establishing, and there is a very good incentive for value addition that there is one time off exemption for import duty of machinery, those who want to make plants over, install their plants over there, and there is 5 years exemption on corporate income tax. So I think this opportunity can be availed by horticulture sector as well. Other than this, we have what we are offering. We are doing capacity building of growers as well, and we have established some growers associations like growers, guava growers, mango growers. So, what I have gathered from all the speakers that yes, there is a gap between grower and industry, and we can build this gap by close collaborations. Also, there was a talk about IP IP labs in this sector, horti sector. So IPO Pakistan under Ministry of Commerce, they have just developed their act, and they are now registering trademarks and all, as well as geographical indicators. So we are also working with these growers association to ensure their geographical GIs and trademarks. Other than this, we have TAFTA as skill development, and we have included these skills of like market demand skills. So we can once we got your invite, so we just thought that we can connect this sector of horti value addition, like for packaging, labeling, the skills needed for that in the lower chain, we can connect with that. Other than that, we are always working with agricultural department in close collaboration, and we'll keep offering our services if needed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Grateful. With that, we come to the Q&A session. And if we have a couple of questions that had come in on the chat box, I saw there's also one hand that's raised by Mr. Iqbal Lakhani. So in order to kick off the Q&A, I would request Mr. Iqbal Lakhani to ask his question.
Hello, I'm Iqbal Lakhani from, I used to work in Laxon Tobacco. For the last 30 years, I have been in tobacco, and I work with the farmers. We work very closely with the farmers, and with the help of our Rothmans, we supplied them seeds, we supplied them the modern methods of farming. But under no circumstances, we had a guarantee, but this guarantee was always one-sided. If they got a better price, they could sell to anybody, because a farmer is actually for his efforts has to make a more profit. At the same time, those guys who had a very high quality of tobacco, which we knew we could export, we used to make them a part of our profits. That is the only way we can get the farmers going. This is a perfect, farmers are in a perfect competition state. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Iqbal Saab, for the comment. Would anyone like to respond to the comment? All right. So thanks again, Ji, for the comment. I'll come to the Q&A chat box, in which Mr. Khurram Javed Makbool from Fatma Group has asked a very astute question about, so I'm sure this is visible to everyone. So the question is about fruits and value added crops, seeds particularly, which is an important factor in having exportable varieties and yield and improving yields. So he wants to know if there's any, if there's any possibility to look into partnerships from other countries in bringing new seed companies to Pakistan. He also asked if BBC can provide any help in initiating the process. But I think coming to the first point about how we can improve collaboration with other countries to bring in the new seed varieties, I think this question would go, would Dr. Erfa Iqbal Sahiba, would you want to first respond?
Yes, video audio bhi karte hain. Definitely I would like to reply. This actually is an excellent thing that we start thinking on these lines, and we actually PBIT is already working on this. I'm sorry. इसमें ऐसा है जी कि we are already in the process of collecting project concepts and demands to outreach other countries, specifically China, because at the moment Chinese companies are the major stakeholders जो CPEC के under यहाँ पे आना चाह रही हैं. So if we get these demands or project proposals or project concepts, if not complete proposals, we would love to showcase them. Outreach the Chinese investors and Turkey. Actually, we have prioritized 5 different countries. So we are outreaching the missions, we are outreaching the companies, and we are showcasing the projects on different websites. I would be very happy to receive these demands, and anybody can contact my office, my team leads, and they will be happy to help them out.
Thank you so much. Zahid, Saleem.
क्या आवाज नहीं आ रही, मेरी जा रही है?
Sorry,
Can I
can't hear.
just add? Can I just add one more point? Excuse me. Can I just add one more point? Kashif Saab talked about. Can I just add one more point, please?
Gigi, please go ahead.
Okay. So Kashif Saab talked about the quarantine requirements in China. I cannot agree more with him. He actually made very valid points. One of the valid points is this AQSI. AQSIQ is the quarantine agency in China, and they have they have a long list of requirements, and there is a very bureaucratic procedure to get our products registered by them. So my 2 requests in this regard to the business community, the relevant business community which is sitting here, are A, that kindly initiate the procedure, because it takes minimum 1 to 2 years, but that time will end once it starts. So I would request the business community to initiate that procedure. The procedure is that the businesses come up with the exportable product, and they file this application through the provincial department or directly to Ministry of Food and National Security in Islamabad. The application, then they have to follow. We agree that they have to then follow it up, and the ministry will then forward the application to our mission in China, and then Beijing embassy will forward it to AQSIQ. Then AQSIQ on its turn will evaluate the application, and then they take the further action. The further action also involves that they at times send their teams to the host country on the government expenditure, like our government's expenditure. The teams, AQSIQ teams, then visit the host country. They evaluate the facilities, they give their observations, either reject or accept, or after giving observations they leave, and then later on they receive the replies. Once they agree, they approve that facility, that product, then they sign a protocol, and that leads to the export of that product to the country, official export. I'm not talking about the illegal export. So this is a long procedure, but I want to share with you that right now, not more than 1 or 2 applications from Pakistan are pending with AQSIQ, and those applications too are for the fruits from northern areas. So this is not a very good score on our side. I strongly say that there should be at least 40 to 50 applications in the pipeline, and then we can increase our export to Chinese market. And on similar lines, the other quarantine agencies in respective countries, we need to fulfill their requirements. That's why when I was talking in my recommendations, the verbal recommendations, not the presentation, I mentioned about establishing certification labs in Pakistan. So that AQSIQ thing is very important. And as Kashif Saab mentioned, the project, I am just sold to your idea, Kashif Saab, that if Chinese companies can be invited, join hand with some local big companies, credible companies. They have their facility in I would say Punjab, but obviously Pakistan, and then they export those products back to China, because they would then be, the companies would be credible enough to get the certifications from AQSIQ and deal with the customs authorities on Chinese side. That's an excellent idea, Kashif Saab. I request you to connect with my team, and we would work more on this project, the project idea. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Zahid Saab, any quick thoughts on bringing more companies in the seed space? Very quick thoughts.
On seed, actually, let me just add up what Usman, Qayyum, and another friend said. Actually, I'll give a PepsiCo example here. PepsiCo produces 80,000 potato varieties every year. And that is basically through our R&D center in Wisconsin, US, Rhinelander. So we are, finding the same constraint. We are not able to bring in promising variety which can, contribute to national produce and growers' profitability at the same time, and can also help us, producing the quality and yield out of the same quantity of the seed. So if Punjab government can, work very closely with the federal government in order to simplify this process of inducting the promising seed varieties here, it will be a great service. And the companies like PepsiCo and obviously other companies will be well in a position to introduce latest, progressive, advantageous varieties. And second thing related to that is obviously many of the friends talk about PPR. So we are at the same time reluctant to introduce these varieties due to the fear that these might not slip away into the market and go into competitors' hand. So would be a great service if something can be done in that.
Thank you so much. The second part of the question was if PBC can help initiate this process. Well, I think with having these discussions, that's exactly what we're intending to do. And one of the key elements that has come up in this particular space, as Zahid have mentioned, is the implementation of the Plant Breeders' Rights Act and ensuring the IP rights for the seeds. That will, of course, encourage more international companies to have confidence in bringing their seeds to Pakistan. Thank you so much. We have about another 10 minutes for this webinar. I'll take another couple of questions. So there's a question in the chat box about how can the MRL, which is the minimum residual level certificate for export, be obtained for citrus? And what are the gaps of these certifications in Pakistan in obtaining those certifications? So this relates to the Plant Protection Department. I understand that Mr. Imtiaz Hussain, who I was told would be joining from the Plant Protection Department. I see the name in my list of attendees, so I'm going to allow you to talk, Mr. Imtiaz, in case you're from the Plant Protection Department. And can you answer this question? Imtiaz, are you there?
Yes, please. Please repeat your question.
The question is, Imtiaz, about the MRL certificates which are necessary for export. I assume this is something that the Plant Protection Department deals with. So the minimum residual level certificates for export. The question is, are these easy to obtain, or are there kind of there's a need for improving the efficiency for exporters to obtain such certificates from the Plant Protection Department?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As far as MRL is concerned, it is easy, but it is not compulsory for all destination to export. This is only for a sensitive destination like USA and the Europe. And we make the sampling of the commodity and send to the accredited lab for the MRLs. It is of 4 or 5 or 6 days process. If somebody has intent to get, or the importing country has a reservation to conduct the MRS test, we can help them, no problem.
All right, and Imtiaz, on that point also, I think there is a concern that was also pinpointed in PBC's research. You said that it takes 5 to 6 days, but exporters have indicated a concern that sometimes these export certificates take so long that they even lose the export order. Is that the case in your opinion?
No, the delay may be at their end, because as soon as they submit, we collect the sample and send to the laboratory.
All right.
Like as in Indonesia and Europe, we are doing this practice.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your intervention. I'm grateful. Thank you. And with that, I'll come to the last question, which has, which is from Mr. Mohammed Wasim Raza. And his question is about that corporate farming is projected as a solution to Pakistan's agricultural progress, but no practical footprint has yet been implemented. And like globe farming, do we have a time frame in the near future of access to precision agricultural software available to Pak farmers? So it has to do a lot, from what I understand, Mr. Raza is pointing to more technical precision agriculture, if I'm correct, and how we can upgrade the farmers to become more cognizant of corporate farming and contract farming. So I hope I've encapsulated the question well enough. And I think I would invite Mr. Usman Qayyum. Usman Saab, you already talked about involving the farmers more in the upgradation process, if you will. Can you shed a little more light for the benefit of the person who asked this question? Thank you.
I think very good question, and I think during the remarks, Zahid Saleem Saab has also shared certain experiences around Pepsi and the work they had been doing. We had been doing certain things at our end as well in this respect. I would slightly comment that we don't have any corporate farming over here. There are definitely certain examples which are there of corporate farming in Pakistan, and some successful examples as well, which are there. The only challenge that comes into place is that in order to have an organized corporate farming, as I mentioned before, to have complete end-to-end kind of a supply chain or a solution. Because unless the user, the consumers, and the growers both joins hand together and they identify the benefit and share the benefit with both of them, this corporate farming cannot really progress or grow. I'm not talking about the technological side. I'm first talking about the more economics of it. Because unless the economic chain has to be fixed, the technical side cannot be fixed. So in order to grow this corporate farming or in order to boost corporate farming, unless this connection or this bridge has to be is not there, it is very difficult. Secondly, on the technical side or the use of technology, I think now there is a lot of awareness around technology all across. It all depends that what is the commitment and the intent of this complete chain, which I talked about, the grower and the industry working together to implement those technologies. And there had been some very good examples where people have tried also. The only challenge becomes scaling it up. And then when you scale it up, again, coming back to the same, some regulatory framework around that where every stakeholder is protected in terms of their own benefits. And at the same time, every stakeholder complied by all those terms and conditions which are being set out in those agreements. That's where the challenge comes in later on when you go into the scaling up of all those models and the concepts. So scaling up is definitely a challenge, but there are definitely few seeds which has already been there in terms of corporate farming. People are doing a pretty good job in that respect.
So let me add in what Usman Qayyum has said. I totally agree with him. And PepsiCo is also doing a contract farming on 20,000 plus acres at the moment with our growers. The challenge which we actually face is when the prices decrease. Let me explain the features of that contract farming first. Our model is basically to pre-lock the prices before the season, and that model is based on cost plus model. The input cost plus putting up a reasonable profitability into that. So being a very ethical company, if the prices even reduced to 50%, company pays the contracted and agreed prices to the growers. Unfortunately, when the prices are high, we also face the compliance issues like we faced last year, where the company had to, put in 13 million US dollar on top of getting the agreed produce, and that was mainly due to high prices of potato, and some of the volume slipped out in the market. So that is quite possible solution if we give an assurance, a sort of assurance, and create an environment where there should be some guarantee or some intervention from the government as well on the contract compliance. That is basically a very successful model, and we have practiced it.
Thank you, Zahid Saab. Very grateful. Munawar Saab, we're almost running out of our time, but I would love to have your comment. So please, if you can give your comment within 60 seconds, please go ahead.
Munawar Hussain, CEO, Agro Food Processing, Multan. I would like to bring the attention of all the participants at this forum about mango pulp export. Pakistan production capacity of mango pulp at present is 80,000 metric ton. But in Pakistan, we have only consumption of 20,000 metric ton. It means we are using only 25% of the total capacity of mango pulp production. So government and private sector should get the export marketing, and government should give the incentive to export the mango pulp. India is producing 600,000 metric ton mango pulp, where 50% mango pulp is being exported. But Pakistan mango pulp export is very negligible. So we have capacity in Pakistan for aseptic mango pulp, good quality mango pulp. So the government and private sector, government should help the private sector to export the mango pulp. This is
thank you so much. Thank you for your comment. Very grateful. I think one of the points we didn't touch much upon in this webinar is how to introduce off-season varieties of fruits for processing units such as the agro processing facility in Multan. But thank you so much for the time. I'd like to pass along the mic to Mr. Ehsan Malik, the CEO of the Pakistan Business Council, for closing remarks. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum everybody. I want to first start by thanking all the panelists for their deep insight into something that is very close to our heart. The reason why it's very close to the heart of Pakistan Business Council is that Pakistan Business Council actually works on two very major thrusts. The first is what we call Make in Pakistan, and the other one is formalization of the economy. When we talk about Make in Pakistan, we don't confine ourselves merely to manufacturing, because we realize that services is a very important component of the economic activity that happens in the country. But even more important perhaps is agriculture. Agriculture is not just important from the point of view of exports or import substitution, but it is also important, in fact more important I would say, from the aspect of food security, but also in terms of the inputs that it is able to produce for Pakistan's industry. Of course, cotton is a case in point for our textile industry, which then represents about 60% of the total exports of the country and employs a significant percentage of the industrial labor. But agriculture is also important because it employs 60% of the total employed people in Pakistan. Cotton is not mainly the only input that is supplied to industry. Before taking on this particular role at Pakistan Business Council, I worked for about 25 years at Unilever, and I can say that in Pakistan, Unilever has relied on a very key output that is produced by one of the participants who was represented on the panel, which is Usman, Qayyum, Rafhan, Maize. So here's a case in point where the value-added products can also be made by the produce of the agriculture sector. I want to go on and say that when you talk about Make in Pakistan or you talk about formalization of the economy, you can't limit yourself to a particular sector or a particular aspect of the policy framework. You've got to take a holistic approach, and that is what we do at Pakistan Business Council. So we start by identifying the key constraints that exist within the overall macroeconomic and the socio-economic framework of the country, and this is why we publish a Charter of Economy, and within that we've tried to identify the major gaps. If they are addressed, then of course agriculture would also get promoted, but so would all the various sectors. And we also are increasingly moving from Make in Pakistan to what to make in Pakistan. So we have done studies recently on refrigerators, on footwear. We've done identified scope for production of mobile telephones. We are just about to complete a study on meat. And so, I'm just quoting a few. If you go to our website, you will find that at least there are 20 studies that have been just done in the last 9 to 12 months. So this is the kind of work that Pakistan Business Council does, and what we try to do is to identify starting from a high level macroeconomic point of view, the major policy framework gaps, but then we focus in deeply on the key sectors that are important. Clearly, agriculture is the backbone of Pakistan's economy, and so therefore agriculture will continue to receive the kind of attention that it deserves. One of the points that was made, and it's very important, particularly from the point of view of cotton, but actually it is important from all agricultural produce, and that is seeds, and within that the importance of assuring intellectual property, and that is very much something that we are focusing on at the Pakistan Business Council. We've actually got a whole theme on illicit trade, and of course intellectual property or counterfeiting is very much an important part of that. The subject of relying on China as a support for Pakistan's agriculture had come up in the discussion, and we believe that it has a major role, but the Pakistan Business Council also, as well as identifying the positives, also should and does identify some risks, and one of the risks that we have identified is the realization that China wishes to stop producing water intensive products itself and rely upon other countries, and of course Pakistan can potentially be one of those. So we have cautioned that we need to be very careful on where do we need to get the Chinese involved. At the end of the day, we are also becoming or are a water stressed country, and we shouldn't start producing commodities or agriculture produce in particular, which then depletes our own water resources. So horses for courses, we need to identify where is that technology useful, but without risking further pressure on our scarce water resources. The other one is of course our own food security. At the end of the day, it's great to export things and to earn export revenue, but we do not wish to put our own population at risk. Unfortunately, this year we have suffered from pressure on food security. We ran out of wheat. We were one of the largest producers of wheat, but we are importing wheat. We are not able to manage what we produce well, and we end up exporting items, not realizing that we will actually be needing to import them later. Sugar is a case in point, and so on. So without going into too much detail, I just wanted to bring the discussion today, which is very valid, and I want to thank all the panelists, particularly our own members. So National Foods and PepsiCo, Mahmood Group, I think has also participated. These companies have recognized the importance of investing time, resources, intellect into an organization such as the Pakistan Business Council, which then can try and identify the policy gaps and try to bring it all together. And increasingly we are doing it, we're not just stopping at doing studies, we do sessions such as the one today. Indeed, on horticulture, this is the second session that we've done. A point was made very validly that where are the farmers? Actually, in the first session that we did some months ago, we brought in a number of progressive farmers into the session. So on that score, thank you everyone here. We wish to see you again in one or more of the sessions that we'll be having on some other sector perhaps. But horticulture alone actually deserves perhaps many more. We will be engaging the Sindh government. A point was very validly made that you can't just rely wholly on Punjab, you have to rely on other provinces. And so we will be doing that. So on that score, thank you very much. And Saud and Jawad, thank you for organizing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hassan Saab. And this brings us to the close of the session. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you for having, thank you for being here. Thank you. Goodbye.
Very much.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much.